Your stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief storymaker at Elkins Consulting. Today's guest is a fun happenstance on LinkedIn. My friend Kevin Strauss and I recorded an episode of this podcast many years ago, and we talked about hugging trees in that episode. We talked about spending time outdoors and how that brings us connection to ourselves and to the world around us. It was a long time ago. And a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, gosh, everything's running together, I posted about an episode of my podcast that I recorded by myself, a monologue, sharing my thoughts about the connections between comfort zone and stretch zone, authenticity, and imposter syndrome. And Kevin's comment on that reminded me of a lot of what we talked about over the years in his specialty, which is connection to other people and emotional health and the distinction between emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, and physical health. So I invited him to join me again on my podcast. It's been a long time. And listeners, you're going to really appreciate this conversation. I have no doubt. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's great to be back on the show. Thanks for having me. I'm glad that comment on LinkedIn, is sparking another conversation for us live.
For sure. So let's start. I know we did this many years ago, but I don't remember what your answer was that time. So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask most of my guests, which is to share something about yourself that most people don't know about you. And I do this so that our listeners get the full, not the full, but more of a complex view of who you are than just what you do and what they hear about your work.
Wow. So, yeah, I forgot about the opening question. And I'm sure this will be a different answer than the last time. So, something that I've been digging into lately, um, and it's something that someone had identified in me a few years ago, and it stuck with me. And it's that I am a fast processor. Um, so what does that really mean? So I think a lot in terms of systems, and I think really fast. I identify problems quickly. I identify solutions quickly. I am working all the way through um, problems and solutions before most people even are asking the very first question to get started. But I've already asked like 10 questions deep internally, and I'm not even aware of it. Like, this is all subconscious. So being a fast processor, for me, it can actually be very frustrating because I'm like 10 or 20 steps ahead of most people just in a normal conversation or meeting. It doesn't mean that I'm smarter than anyone. It just means that I work my brain is working differently. So I reach conclusions, decisions, insights before most people tend to. And I was actually digging into this, exploring it deeper in the last couple of weeks, and I might be in like in the 5% of the population that is like this fast processing. And just as an example, not to go on and on about this, but one example of how this plays out in my life is with all of the different inventions. I've got more than 75 patents that I've earned. I can get to conclusions and solutions much faster than, I guess, the general population, and that's translated into a lot of medical device patents, things like that. So,
That's fascinating. And I guess I'm not surprised by that, but other people that don't know you as well might be surprised. In StrengthsFinder, that's the strategic talent. It's a combination of strategic and ideation. And I love that you said that because it also gets in your way, right?
yes, I get
How does it?
very frustrated quickly in meetings. Um, I literally stopped a couple years ago from even joining wonderful group conversations, group discussions. There could be 20, 30 people, especially through like COVID and whatnot, but then well beyond that, where people to me, they're just going around in circles and nobody's identifying the real root problem or the real question or the real goal. And I'm already like 10 or 20 steps
Yeah.
down the
Sometimes you have
line.
to wait for them to get there on their own
And,
because telling
yeah.
them isn't the right thing to do either.
Oh, no, no,
So,
that does not work. I've got a
right,
lot of
no,
experience. That does not work.
right. The reason I ask you that is because I also lead with strategic. It's my number one talent. And one of the ways that I get, there are two ways that this really manifests in negative situations. I am thinking way ahead. When I get in the car to run errands, if I'm running 4 errands, the map shows up in my head just like that. I already know,
Mhm.
and I'm not consciously thinking about the trip, but if I am asked to explain it, I can say, well, I don't want to go left across the busiest street in town without the light. And so that's why this is happening then. And I'm going to have frozen peas in the car and it's going to be 80 degrees. So I that has to be our last stop. And so if I talk it through, I can explain it, but I am often not thinking about it. It just pops into my head. The danger here is that I'm not listening to the people around me, which means that sometimes my husband, who might have deliberative in his talent, so he understands the snags we're going to hit just like that.
Mhm.
If I'm listening to him, if I value his strength, he can say, oh, well, I read somewhere that North Montana has construction going on at this intersection. And I'll be like, oh, that changes everything. And if I don't listen to him, if I don't ask, if I don't share what's going on in my head, tell him how I got to where I was going to go, then he can't help me avoid that intersection. So
Yeah,
that's
that
the
that
one.
information that he's privy to, but you aren't.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
so that's a big part of where I get in my own way with my strategic, especially because I used to think that my strategic was the best way. Now, the thing is, it could be the fastest and most efficient. It will be guaranteed. It'll be the fastest, most efficient way to get there. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way.
Right.
And that's
It's
where
not always the best way.
no, and that's where I would get in my own way because I would make this assumption that if it's the fastest and most efficient, it's probably the best too.
It's probably the best, but that's not always true. Yeah.
No. So
Yeah.
that's where I get my own way.
Exactly.
The other thing that sometimes happens is that I will be so far ahead that I don't engage the other people involved in it. And so I can't delegate. I can't or I don't delegate because I'm like, I'm 2 time zones ahead of you. I'm not going to wait for you to catch up. And that means that people aren't engaged with my idea, and that always fails. If other people are involved with my idea and I haven't engaged them, that change is gonna fail.
Yeah.
So, that's where I get in my own way
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this.
And I feel you. And like we were saying, there's no right or wrong or better or worse way. It's just this is how we are operating in the world. And this is
Mhm.
how we learned. I mean, honestly, for me, being a fast processor was a survival technique as a young child. You know, if I'm the baby of the family, if I didn't figure things out quick and get my voice heard first or quick, I would just be left in the corner, you know, silent. No
Sure,
one would ever hear me. So it was really a
sure.
survival mechanism for me. But it's so
Yeah.
funny, you know, you mentioned like the directions or the route that you had planned, and then if your husband gives you some new information, then instantly you just reformulated your whole plan, like
Mhm.
subconsciously in seconds, you know, and you're
Exactly.
ready to go, you know.
Right. Exactly. And when he drives, here's another way it gets in my way. I have strategic and activator, which means I always have a sense of urgency. So once that map is in my head, I'm on my way. I don't
We
stop to
got to do
think
it. We
about,
got to do it.
yeah, we do it right now. And sometimes when my husband is driving, you know, he has a strategic brain. It's not his number one talent. And he uses it differently because it's surrounded by other talents. He collects information. That's one of the things he does a lot. So when he drives and he turns left out of our driveway instead of right, and in my head, I'm like, "Why would you do that? You're the smartest person I know. And now we're gonna have to go left across the busiest intersection in Helena." And, like, I get annoyed. And what I realize is that I have to choose to make an adjustment in my talents in how I'm using them. So we have top 5 or 6 talents. And if I'm just relying on the top 2, it's like overinflating 2 of my tires on my car. It's going to get
Yeah.
wobbly.
Yeah, and
I'm
you're
going to
selling
start a
yourself
fight with
short.
my husband, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not using all my talents. So
Yeah.
what I find is that I make a choice and I think I'm just going to use my adaptability talent right now and go with the flow because my relationship with him is more important than getting somewhere fast. We're not in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah. So knowing your priorities, really helps make the decision.
Absolutely, adjusting those dials. So speaking about adjusting those dials, one of the things that I keep coming back to is how I didn't even know I was doing this, that strategic brain, that when I know somebody's talent, a strengths finder results, so I know their top 5 or 6 talents, their approach to problems, projects, and people, then we talk strategies to help them get out of their comfort zone. Which tool in your toolkit can you use to get out of your comfort zone? But
Okay.
what I talked about and what you commented on was how do we make sure that we have a defined comfort zone so that we feel safe stepping out of it into our stretch zone? And why sometimes do we stay in that comfort zone when we know absolutely that it's better to step into the stretch zone? So let's talk about how you think about comfort zone, because you introduced me to those concepts. I know you heard it somewhere else, so we can give credit where credit is due. But when you
Right.
talk to me about the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and then the oh shit zone,
Yeah.
um,
Or we can call it panic if we want to keep it
panic zone,
G-rated.
I don't, I don't know what G-rated is, Kevin. We'll talk. I don't have rules on this show. Did I mention my adaptability and activator? I don't have rules.
Right.
So, will you share with us your first of all, start with how you distinguish those different kinds of health so that we are all talking about the combination that is necessary to have a comfort zone and know when you're stepping out of it. Because I think those 4 parts of health all contribute to this.
Oh, okay. You wanna go back a step
All the way back.
actually,
Hmm.
and first talk about it's really my wellness model. I
Hmm.
call it like Formula 4 wellness. I know there's a lot of wellness models, out there in the world. Again, not that one is better or worse than another, but this is just where I've landed after like 30 years of working in, personal growth and human behavior. So for me, Formula 4 wellness is really about I see it like wellness like the 4 tires on a car, where each tire represents an element of health. And those 4 elements are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and everyone's got definitions. I think one of the problems in the wellness industry and health industry is that we're not really clearly defining what these different elements of health are. So physical, I'm with everybody else. It's really our way of moving about through the world. Getting out of bed without all the aches and pains and not being sick and having, an appendicitis or a stomach ache or a headache or whatever. So
Chronic
physical health is
pain.
right. Yeah, that's a big one, right? Um, and we can actually we'll go bigger on that, I'm sure, later, but there's really only 2 kinds of pain. There's physical pain and emotional pain. There's no such thing as mental pain. And with my definitions that I'll share, I think that really helps explain things further. So physical health, I'm with everybody else, and that often falls into like fitness and nutrition, but there's, a couple of sleep, those are some other physical things. So really emotional health, and that's my main focus. And emotional health for me is really all about a person's ability to give and receive love. And by love, I mean love, connection, a sense of belonging. Romantic love is like 0.05% of our relationships. It's really all about our family, friend love, connecting, really our love for our fellow human being.
Community. Mm.
Yeah, and there's 8 billion people on the planet now. You're not going to know 8 billion people. Um, there's really, there's different circles of people that you know.
Right.
But up to like 150 people that are really like in your day-to-day kind of life. That's what the research shows. So emotional health, your ability to give and receive love. Mental health, I see really as your ability to focus, concentrate, think clearly, perform cognitive tasks. So mental health is really primarily located in your frontal lobe, the front of your brain where you're doing your decision making and reasoning, and emotional
Understanding
health,
consequences.
right, working through that. And emotional health is really more located in your midbrain, your amygdala, your feeling, your emotional brain. Even though they're both in your brain, you, yes, thoughts influence feelings and feelings influence thoughts and all of that, but your midbrain is receiving information so much faster and a lot more of it than what your conscious brain can even possibly manage. So it's really your midbrain, which is a more basic element of your brain, the mammalian brain. It's your feelings, it's your feelings and emotions. And if we are feeling threatened or unsafe in some way or attacked in some way, if we're not feeling that love and connection, it hurts. It causes pain. And as I said earlier, there's only two kinds of pain, and your brain doesn't know the difference between physical pain and emotional pain. All your brain knows is, I'm in pain, do something about it right now. I don't
Mhm.
care about the down the line consequences. I just need relief right now. And that's where behavior really comes into play. And then just to round out the four tires, I see spiritual health not about God or religion or anything like that. Because I think when we focus on just the God and religion side of spirituality, spiritual health, then we're really discriminating against all those people who don't believe in your God or your religion or any God or any religion, which
Mhm.
happens to be me. I'm a total atheist. I don't even believe in the concept of God, but I can be just as spiritual as the next person. So for me, spiritual health is really all about knowing and pursuing your purpose in life or purposes. You can have many purposes. You can have long term and short term. You can have big ones and little ones. It's just about what matters to you at your core, your spirit, your soul. What matters to you? What gets you out of bed each day? And if that's God or serving Jesus or Allah or someone, great, go do that. I want nothing more for you than to have you nurture your spiritual health in a way that is important to you. But for me, that's different. So it's really just about nurturing your purpose. And when all four tires, all four areas of health are being nurtured, that's when your being is really going to be operating really well. And again, just to finish that out, even, you can't just inflate one tire and think your car is going to run well. And that's pretty much what we do in society with physical health, right? Fitness, nutrition. We don't even, sleep doesn't even come in. It's a badge of honor. Like, oh, I only got 3 hours of sleep last night. Like, I'm so cool and tough. I'm more valuable because I got less sleep and I'm still operating. And value in our brain translates to love. And that's really an emotional health need. So we're trying to feel more valuable because value equals love in our brain. So, and if just one tire goes flat or runs low, then you're not operating well. And right now, I think humanity is really operating with a pretty much flat emotional health tire
Mhm. As a whole.
as a whole. Yeah, each person, because we don't really know how to nurture. We think we do, but we don't, because we know that we don't know we're nurturing emotional health well because it shows up in our behaviors. And we see all manner of destructive behaviors, gun violence and addiction and narcissism. And we also see it in extremely constructive behaviors, such as overachieving, that would be me, um, or extreme athleticism, like professional sports, Olympic sports, getting a degree, getting another degree,
Being
earning another
philanthropy.
certificate.
Mhm.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So we compensate for our pain, not feeling loved, or not feeling valued through, we can ease it by numbing it or distracting ourselves, being busy all the time. It's another way we distract. We can soothe it with food or liquor or drugs. We can numb it with drugs, and alcohol. But we can also try to prove our value to the world by doing, getting another degree, getting a higher grade on a test, earning more money, getting more power, having more status on social media, more followers. This is all ways we try to show our value, that we're worthy of love, but it's never enough. It never soothes. We always need more, 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 because we're not actually addressing the correct problem. And the real problem is we don't feel loved just for who we are.
No, no kidding. As I keep coming back to this combination of comfort zone, authenticity, and imposter syndrome. And when I think of comfort zone, it's been stronger and stronger thought for me that people need to identify their comfort zone. They need to know what that feels like. Where am I connected? So years ago, I'm gonna ask you to share a story, but I'm gonna share mine so that I can unlock yours. Years ago, I read an article that had a quote, a Kurt Vonnegut quote called, "If that's not nice, I don't know what is." That's a Kurt Vonnegut quote that he took from his grandfather. And I read it in an article written by Stephen Magling. And this was like 4 years ago, probably. And he had actually written the article at least 18 months before that. But it was making the rounds on social media. And after a third friend shared it, I thought, okay, this is a sign I need to read this article. So I read it and I remember feeling so comforted by this article. Stephen's an amazing human and his writing is just as incredible. So the premise of the article was that we tend to, we naturally are neurologically, we look for the things that go wrong. It's the way that we protect ourselves. It's the way we keep ourselves safe. It's we identify all the things that go wrong. The problem is, if we're not noticing the things that go right, our target fixation is always on things that go wrong. So, for instance, my car has a dead battery. My washing machine leaks, and my dog pukes all over the floor. And I say, all the bad things happen to me. Of course, this would all happen to me. But what I'm not noticing is that that car battery has been around for 5 or 6 years. It just happened to go at the same time that I had these two other things happen. So I'm not noticing, oh my gosh, this battery lasted for much longer than it was supposed to.
Mhm.
How cool is that? The washing machine is leaking. Well, yeah, it's 10 years old. It just happened coincidentally to happen the same day, right? All those things. My dog maybe throws up on the carpet once a month maximum. That means that 99% of the time he's healthy and he's fine.
Right.
But I'm only looking for the things that go wrong. So when I read that article, it was winter and my boys were still living at home. And I remember walking downstairs from my office, and the boys were in the TV room together, sitting by the fire. And my youngest was snuggled up with our dog. And I leaned against the doorway and out loud I said, huh, well, if that's not nice, I don't know what is. And when I think about the definition of comfort for me, that moment in time comes back to me.
Mhm.
My boys are safe and healthy and warm.
Mhm. Your
I
dog.
and my dog, I have this dog who provides great comfort and love and enthusiasm and playfulness,
Unconditional love.
unconditional, and he's playful and sweet, and we go for hikes together. Um, I have this dog. I know my husband is in the house. We are all safe and healthy. I have warmth. I have the food that I need. And I am absolutely loved in that moment. whatever else happens, I'm looking for more moments where I feel that.
Yeah. All the true basic needs are being met.
Hmm. So, when was a time where you can identify a moment like that, where you realize, oh, I need more of this? This is where I feel most comforted.
That's a good one. I really haven't thought like that before. But what and as we scheduled this, a week or so ago, and I've been thinking about it since. So what comes up for me is I have to kind of work backwards. So, and this is what I was doing in the last couple of days, which is what behaviors was I doing where I was really stretching myself? So, what was my state of
Before.
before that? Or what was my state at that time so that I did feel comfortable to stretch myself? And and then that brings me back to um wow, I'll just go back to 2001, which was a pretty banner year for me. Um where in that year I went on a 3-week backpacking trip to the northern slopes of Alaska, self-guided. So it was just me and two other men. We didn't have a professional guide service. It was just the three of us. Um, and also in that year, I did my first triathlon. It was actually a duathlon because they canceled the swim, but I learned to swim in that year. That's pushing myself because I always had a fear of water, and I was 32 years old. So, um,
Wow.
I was, pushing myself, learning to swim, getting comfortable in the water because I was never comfortable there. And also in that year, 2001, is when I first had the spark of the idea for what is now Uchi. So that was 24 years ago. That actually all happened between August and December of 2001. So what was going on in 2001, right? That things
Right. That
were
gave
so,
you that
so
comfort.
right,
Right. Right. That support
right.
and foundation.
Yeah. So this doesn't become like an epically long story. Um, so in 2001, I had a good job. We were doing really good work. I felt incredibly supported by my boss. Um, and, I was doing running, biking, swimming. So physically, I was eating well, all that stuff was good. Um, the year earlier that year, at the top of the year, my girlfriend and I broke up, and that was the first woman I'd ever been in love with. So that relationship had ended, but at least I knew I was capable of falling
Mhm.
in romantic love. So that was really nice. I see that from the half glass full side, right?
Right.
So even though actually it was a year and a half before that, but either way, I knew I could love, right? And that was a big
Mhm.
deal. Um, and and another big thing that I'm realizing more and more is, and I'll put this as the spare tire on the four tire analogy of wellness, the spare tire being financial health. I don't
Sure.
consider it a main primary tire or element of wellness because humans invented money. Humans didn't invent the need to sleep or invent the need for love. We have the capacity to love, but we didn't invent the need for it. That was part of our
Mhm.
biology. So humans created, money. So it becomes a secondary needs. But anyway, when financial health was so secure, um, I'm able to, push the extremes. I'm able to push harder, to stretch, right? So everything was really coming together, and I knew more of who I was, my identity, my purpose, my spirituality. It was actually in 2000 because of that relationship that I really finally um, trusted myself to say, you know what, I don't believe in this concept of God. It just doesn't even work for me, and it really never has worked for me. But I finally put a stake in the sand and I'm like, yeah, it, this doesn't work at all, you know? So everything was coming together, you know, it was like the perfect storm of good. Um, and that led to this incredible 2001, you know, and again, being able to tap into being so safe and confident and secure with everything in my world that this idea of Uchi and connection and the just the most basic need that every human being has that's not being met and that's driving behavior. All of that came in like an epiphany um,
Mhm.
24 years ago.
I
So I
love
stretched
that
to all of that.
story. I love that story so much because what you're also touching on is that when we pay attention to our own comfort and feel the foundation to be able to step into that stretch zone, we also can understand what other people need. We can see it and we are driven to guide others toward that zone as well to say, "Oh, look what I just found. I want others to be part of this too. I want it, it's I know how this has affected me. How can I help others feel that same sensation because I know it's missing."
Hmm.
You can see it
Yeah,
in behavior.
and asking the question also, like, is this just a me thing or is this a universal thing? And
Mhm.
I'm all about the 30,000 foot, the universal type stuff. Um, like, you know, I work really well on a high fat diet, and this goes back to like the early 2000s. Um, but that's just a Kevin thing. That's not a universal thing. Like everybody,
Right.
you know, needs fat in their diet, but not like Kevin needs fat, right? But when it comes to love and connection, what I have found over 30 years of digging into this, because that also started before the whole Uchi thing, but every human being does need love and connection. It is literally part of our biology, literally.
Mhm.
And no one
Right.
invented that, you know, no person invented that. It was there. So that's literally how we got to where we are today by working together. That's the only reason we where we why we are where we are today,
Mhm.
because we've done it together.
Right. So I also have seen that that love and emotional connection looks different for people. It feels the same,
Hmm.
but it looks different. I was thinking about one of my friends who was late diagnosed autistic, and she doesn't like people to touch her generally, but she snuggles her dog. That dog is the only being that can sit on her lap and she won't shy away from it.
Yeah.
And
So
then
the
she
need
has
is there,
right,
but
exactly,
how we each get it might be different.
exactly, and she does have people who she is very close to. It was her mother when she was growing up. It's her she actually has a romantic partner that knows exactly when and how,
Hmm.
and she now has a child who is learning the when and the how of his mother's
Hmm.
patterns.
Yeah,
So it's there.
it's
It just
there. It's
looks
a
really
basic
different from
need.
what I want. I'm just,
Yeah.
for our listeners, if you are curious about learning any more about this, there's a book called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. It must be 20 years old now. Fantastic book. And it changed everything for me in terms of understanding um, the different ways people experience that comfort and love and connection with others. So,
Yeah.
The Curious
Yeah.
Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Fantastic book.
I love it. I love it. And I actually think that is one of the most important primary jobs, responsibilities of a parent is to learn how does this child need to receive love? And we're not doing it right. We're not doing it well at all. It, and then we see it in behaviors. I honestly believe that I have no data on this, but I believe that like the terrible twos, you know, kids and their tantrums and all, I think that if parents knew better how to really acknowledge and validate feelings and how to engage with their baby, their infant, their newborn, more effectively emotionally, not just keeping them alive, which we're doing a pretty good job at that nowadays, but nurturing them emotionally, I think we can dramatically reduce this terrible twos part of development. I think it's really just 2-year-olds don't have the language yet, but they can throw a tantrum or they can cry. And we see adults do that all the time too, because they never learned how to use the language or some other means to
Right.
communicate their needs.
Well, I could see where um, that could be engaged with children. I can tell you as a parent that I look back and I think I was pretty good at acknowledging emotion and feeling. Um, I can also say that I definitely used some of these strategies of um, putting myself in their place. So, for instance, when our older son was upset about something and was i- on the edge of a full-on tantrum, and my friend said, "Well, Sarah, life is full of disappointments when you're 2." And I remember that vividly, obviously, because he's 27 now. This is 25 years ago. I remember her saying that, and I realized she was right. I still had to set boundaries though, and I think that's the part that we have to acknowledge. The terrible twos are
Mhm.
gonna happen. They're going to not be able to have the words that they need to be able to express their emotion. They're gonna be filled with disappointment. So I'm pushing back a little on that, that I think it's a natural part of a child's development to go through those difficulties and not being able to describe what they're feeling. Um, and then we get past that, and that's where I think the critical time is when they do have the words, helping them use them, acknowledging and allowing them to use those words. So,
Oh yeah,
just pushing
and
back a little
holding
bit.
space so that they can. That's
Exactly.
fine. I mean, we don't have to have a full-on, argument or debate about it. But I will also give another reply back to that is by the time a child is 2, we know from the neuroscience and the research that most of a person's personality and their belief system is dialed in by the time they're 6 or 7.
Mhm.
So by the time they're 2, that's already 33% of their belief system dialed in. So that's a big percentage of things getting formulated in their brain, even without real language and all. So, um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many tools, holding space. Like my parents have no idea to this day how to hold space. I mean, my mom can talk for 45 minutes without taking a breath, like she can't be silent.
Of course, they didn't have the
So
tools. They just didn't
they
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 didn't
didn't
know.
even know. They just
Right.
absolutely didn't even know. And most people don't know. And bringing this back to like love and connection, I'll just say love, but I mean love, connection, and belonging. Um, you know, and this is really funny too, is if you want to be good at something, you got to practice, right? I mean, no one's just an
Mhm.
expert at skiing. You fall down a lot. No one's just an expert at math and calculus, right? Like you got to practice over and over and over. How many people on the planet are actively, intentionally, daily practicing love and connection? How
That is
many,
a
even
good
of the
question.
audience, right? How many people have ever read a book about love? Not about relationships. I mean about love. I would bet it's less than 1%. So if we think we're experts at love just because we have the capacity to love, you're fooling yourself. Because
Right.
if you haven't practiced it, and socializing is not the same as connecting. You can socialize all day long at happy hour or at a Super Bowl party, and still feel completely alone.
Agreed. So as we come back to this idea of defining your comfort zone,
Yeah, we haven't
because
really done much.
no, well, we kind of have. We definitely have because I
Okay.
described how it feels to be in my comfort zone. And you
Okay.
described what it took to be in that place in
Okay.
order to
Yeah.
stretch. You absolutely described that in 2001, all of the pieces that had to be in place for you to strive the way you did
Yes. Yeah.
without injuring yourself and with making it your own desire and not for external validation, which I
Well, I
that
was still doing a lot of it for external. I didn't realize it. It took me 15 years to realize that,
mm,
but but it still it still did push my stretch zone like big time. Like
absolutely, which I think is an important acknowledgement here is that sometimes stepping out of your stretch zone is related to external gratification. I would say most of the time it is actually,
yeah.
because we're striving in some way for some reason, and it's rarely because, "Oh, I wanna do that." It's usually,
Yeah.
"Oh, I have to do that to have a better career," or, "I have to do that, so I make more money," or, "I have to do that so that my body is, the way I want it to look for
Absolutely.
somebody else's
Absolutely.
acknowledgement," or whatever.
And I see this all the time because I'm very active in like triathlon and backpacking Facebook groups and things like that. And I love helping people reach their goals. But the thing I chuckle, but um people think they know what their goals are. And I have tested this hundreds of more than like so many times. They think they know what their goal. Oh, I like to challenge myself. Yeah, that's not
Right.
it. That's not it. You're still looking to be valued. And you think if you finish this
Mhm.
triathlon, because again, I'm a 24-year, triathlete. Um, I tried to show my value, prove my value to the world by doing another triathlon, by doing a longer triathlon,
Mm,
by doing a bigger backpacking expedition. It was
right.
all trying to prove my value. And again, value equals love. So I'm just trying to feel loved,
Mhm.
and that's where the behavior element really comes into play and why emotional health is so completely connected to um, behavior is that most behavior is just trying to support our emotional health. It's really trying to often it's trying to ease the pain of not feeling
Mhm.
loved and valued.
I
That's
guarantee
where
I
most
was
behavior is coming from.
right. And I think, at least in some cases, it's the wisdom comes with age in some cases. Like, I think about when I was in my 50s, my striving became much more about my own desire,
Nice little
internal
shift.
yep,
Mhm.
that internal desire for myself.
Yeah.
So, my first backpacking trip that you and I talked about a couple years ago, and my question was, "Can I do this? I've never done this
Right.
before. I wonder if my body and my brain can take
Mhm.
this stretching." I was so
Yeah.
curious to know. So, I guess a lot of it is generating and cultivating the curiosity for ourselves and asking ourselves those questions. Why do I need to step out of my stretch zone right now? What is the goal? And is that really the goal? Is that s-
Is that really the
and
goal?
is that okay? Because if the goal is I want to do this so that my friends think I'm stronger, then just own that. It doesn't make it a bad goal. It just
Oh,
means
it
that
doesn't mean it's bad. Yeah.
no, it's just a matter of acknowledging it and knowing where it's coming from.
Knowing
And
where it's
again,
coming from. Mhm.
right. And again, coming back to what is my comfort zone? What does that look like for me?
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
this conversation. So,
Yeah, what really matters to you and what feels it's what's comfortable, what is just easy and not stressing me, and I'm not fearing pain. I'm not fearing, and that pain is usually emotional pain. I'm not fearing judgment. I'm not fearing shame. I'm not fearing failure, which becomes judgment and devaluing. that's what schools teach, right? So
Hmm.
who's going to stretch themselves in a school in typical education? Because if you fail, you're judged as less than, you have less value. Well, that feels like garbage. I don't want to feel
Hmm.
that. That hurts. So I'm not even going to try. And then when you stop trying and you stop pushing into that stretch zone, what I have found, and this really came about for me during COVID, which is right after it was right after one of your NLPs,
Right.
2020. Um, what I found is that the the less that we push into our stretch zone, the smaller our comfort zone
Exactly.
becomes. So if
Hmm.
we don't keep pushing on that wall, that barrier, that boundary of comfort, if we don't keep trying to push it out, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I heard it from so many people as things started opening up after COVID shut down and so on. Um, People like, oh my God, I don't even want to go out to dinner. I don't want to meet people at a restaurant. I
I
don't
don't
want
know
to
how to
go out
do
to
this anymore.
yeah, it's been a year,
Right.
it's been a year and a half. Like it feels scary. It's like, what am I gonna see? What am I? Oh, I'll just stay on my couch and watch another Netflix, show
Hmm.
or something. I'll just curl up under my warm, comfortable blanket with my own little
Hmm.
drink of whatever it is, hot cocoa or a beer, whatever. I'll just stay safe and warm and cozy and comfortable here.
Hmm.
You
And that
know,
becomes
so
very painful and very
well,
limiting.
and
Most
that's
of the
the
time,
whole
we don't
thing.
even, and we don't even know. Oftentimes, we don't even know that that's what's happening.
Oh
It,
no, we don't
we're
realize it.
just
It's so
sad or,
subconscious. It's
right.
so unless
Mhm.
you're really trying to dial in and look at it, which again, when you really are dialing in, looking at something under this really critical lens, then you have to ask yourself these hard questions, which can bring up other pain, like, well, why did I do that? And what's that about?
Mhm.
Um, and that can be very uncomfortable. So I think it's important because I don't think we exactly touched on this. We sort of skirted around maybe, but the comfort zone feels good, right? It
Scary, right. There's no
it's
risk.
not scary. It's not uncomfortable. It's comfortable. It feels
Mhm.
good. But the stretch zone inherently is uncomfortable. It's different. It's new. So it's uncomfortable. And another word for uncomfortable or discomfort is pain.
Mm.
So why would anyone ever want to venture into pain when our entire lives are are designed to reduce pain? Because pain is one of our best signals that our survival is being threatened. And our whole
Mm.
goal is just to keep surviving, right? I mean, any living species on the planet, I really do think we have the same number one goal. There are
Survival.
8.7 million species on the planet, from grasses to shrubs to flowers to sharks to humans. There are 8.7 million species, right? I mean, there's a lot of species of dogs, but canine is a species. Every single species on the planet is just trying to continue to survive. Plants have poisons and prickers and thorns, and animals can attack, and they have, they dispel ink or poison. Like, we all have these mechanisms to continue to survive. That's really our only goal, is just keep surviving. And if that is being threatened, and pain is one of our greatest signals that that's being threatened. So why would we want pain? We don't want pain. And venturing into that stretch zone, if we go too deep into it, it's really painful. But if we take just that little step, then it's
Mhm.
then it's pain that we can bear. Or if we
Agreed.
have enough of that emotional support and connection and belonging in our foundation, in our lives, then it's not as scary because I've got a support system to back me up. If I do fail or if something does go wrong, I've got someone that's there for me, that's got my back. And then I
Exactly.
feel a little bit more courageous to endure or expose myself to some discomfort or pain because I've got someone back there.
Hmm.
And and that's the emotional. That's why it's
Right.
emotional. Because if it's a physical pain, you go to the doctor and they can pretty much fix you right up.
Right. Kevin, this has been such a good conversation, as I knew it would be.
Yeah, it's been
Let's
fun.
let's wrap it up. Listeners, just so that you know, Kevin's Uchi app there will be a link to that in the show notes with this podcast at elkinsconsulting.com. So you can learn more about using this platform, this tool to connect with people around you. It's a fabulous tool. I have it on my phone. And I'd encourage you to look that up. I'd also encourage you to read the book, The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. He talks about why it's so important to get out of the comfort zone in terms of your neurological ability to problem solve and be creative. So, believe it or not, it is all related. And listeners, it's your turn. I'm going to ask you to define your comfort zone. Consider a moment in time when you felt truly comfortable, loved, safe, supported, just like when I stood in my doorway and saw our children in the room and said, if that's not nice, I don't know what is. Find a handful of moments like that in your life. Define what it felt like. Because once you have that foundation, you can step out of it. Thank you to Kevin, and thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Your Stories Don't Define You. How you tell them will.
That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.